Recovery is often spoken about as if it's just this clear path. And the thing is, when your child has autism, it looks completely different to that. And it's misunderstanding that there are these differences that can sometimes mean that recovery is a much harder process for everybody than it needs to be. Recovery, it's sometimes framed around concepts such as flexibility and motivation and impact. And for the autistic child, those concepts, they just do not translate the same way at all. It's not just about restoring nutrition. Recovery isn't just about that. Recovery is about so many other things, and especially for a child with autism, it's about safety, and it's about predictability, and it's about reducing and overwhelming anxiety. For many children like this, and my daughter included, food was tied to a lot of different things, which is what became the problem. And by that, I mean, it was tied to a very, very rigid thinking. And food was tied to her need for sameness and control. And it was tied to like a difficulty for tolerating uncertainty. All of those concepts all just became wrapped up in the idea of food and eating and nutrition. And when these factors aren't meaningfully considered, recovery expectations, they can sometimes just create more distress for your child. And to give an example of this, when my daughter was first admitted to a general paediatric ward and she spent 3 weeks there initially, it quickly became a safe place. She got into a routine. She liked the routine of a hospital. She actually stuck to the food plan as well, which meant that she ended up partially weight restored. And she got to know all the staff. She got to know all of the job titles, which is just something that she likes to do. And then on one random Monday afternoon, I received a phone call to say, okay, she's going to be discharged between 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock today. This was the worst thing that could have happened. Not just for me. I mean, I hadn't got the house ready or anything like that. Obviously, I did have my concerns about her coming back and just falling straight back into the same patterns. However, for her, not knowing what's coming now and next is devastating. And to throw that upon her when I went to visit her at midday, right, you're actually being discharged today, well, within the hour, really. It was the worst thing that could have happened. She spiraled very quickly. She actually ended up in such a distressed state that we had to contact the crisis team that weekend. She was begging to go back. She felt like the safe rug had been pulled from underneath her, and it just absolutely shook her to the core. And now, of course, that we do have her official diagnosis, and we understand that this basically took away those safe boundaries for her, those safe perimeters. And we understand now why this cannot happen to her again. And it's difficult as a parent when your child's progress is measured very much against a framework that it just doesn't reflect the autistic experience whatsoever. So sometimes you might feel like your child isn't recovering, and certainly isn't recovering at the rate that they're expected to. From an advocacy point of view, this really, really matters. When autism is treated as a secondary consideration rather than a key factor in the clinical picture, a lot of the time interventions can really, really miss the mark, just like that example that I just gave you then. You know, really, children like her, they need clear communication, they need a slower pace of things, and they need a reduced emphasis on abstract targets. She couldn't imagine what it's like to come home. She needs to live in the here and now. So talking to her about life when she comes home, it's quite distressing for her. So we've had to do that in little bite-sized pieces. We've had to wave to her from a car park at one point because she wasn't ready to actually, come and visit us outside of that environment. So as dreadful as that felt as a parent, you feel like people are looking at you like you're a monster or something. Why are these parents waving to the child from, she's on a minibus and you're in a car park? But these are, like I say, these are all these adjustments, and they're adjustments that you might find yourself having to advocate for because the system isn't necessarily built for children like ours. And you can sometimes feel like they're recovering in the short term, but unless you actually have these adjustments in place, you're not necessarily guaranteeing a long-term successful recovery. If recovery is going to be lasting, it has to be safe. That is both physiologically and neurologically as well. Autism doesn't make recovery impossible, but it does make it look different. Thank you for listening.